Have you ever found yourself in that situation where a customer is overdue paying your invoice? And you know that you're absolutely in the right to chase payment, and you know that it's actually them that is in the wrong for being late getting round to paying you. And yet you still feel that you're the guilty party here because you're about to do the chasing, and you feel like a little bit of an ogre, and perhaps you feel that you're almost being mean, or that you're being needy or greedy or desperate or something like that. It can be such an awkward situation, can't it? It feels so emotional and so difficult. And there's also the big challenge that a lot of the time, this is a customer that you want to keep working with. So you want to keep them on side, you want a great relationship to continue, but at the same time, you know you also need to be a little bit of the bad cop. So it's such a quandary. Which is why I wanted to share with you this week 4 of my favourite tips to help you get paid faster and more consistently in the future. And my very first tip is, wherever possible, to be paid in advance, to either be paid in full upfront or to take a deposit or create a payment plan that includes some degree of payment upfront. And this one's always an interesting one because I talk to a lot of people that say, oh, that's not how things work in my industry. But who's to say that what happens in the rest of your industry has to be what happens in your business? This is your business. These are your payment terms. You are entitled to request payment in whatever way and whenever you choose. Sometimes you might have to break that mold, but you know what? Somebody has to be the one to do that. So if you look at the option to always get paid in advance, then you'll never have the chance to have to, that situation where you're having to chase for the money. It will get rid of all of that. You may have some customers that don't like that, and then you get to make the choice. Is that something that is a red flag? Is it a sign that they are not really the most committed customer, or are they going to be a little bit flaky, or do they not perhaps really value what you do if they have an issue with paying you up front? So as I say, wherever possible, get paid up front, or at least take a deposit, and then the customer is invested, not just you being invested with your time, your money, your commitment. So that's tip 1, get paid up front. Tip number 2 is always to have clear terms and conditions, and make sure that your payment terms are absolutely clear within that. One of the most common reasons for people paying late is that actually they're just not that clear about when you are supposed to get paid. And even if you don't have legally drawn up, fully bells and whistles terms and conditions, just clarifying things up front in an email and explaining very clearly what your payment dates are and what the payment period is, and just getting the customer to acknowledge that will stand you in really good stead to get paid faster. Step number 3 probably sounds ridiculously simple, and yet so often it's a cause of being paid late, is to issue your invoices on time and be prompt with them every single time. The number of conversations I've had with people where they're really frustrated that customers pay late, but actually they're sending the invoice regularly a couple of weeks late and sometimes even a month late, and then expecting people to pay that straight away because they say, well, the payment's due on the last day of the month. But you know, if you only send your invoice out on the 28th of the month, you're not being very realistic. You're not being fair with the customer. So don't leave it a couple of weeks, a couple of months after the project. Send your invoices really promptly. Be professional, be organised, be rigorous with it. And when the customers see that you're organised, they're far more likely to pay you on time. So step 3, issue your invoices promptly. And step 4 is have a very clear and robust credit control process. So credit control is basically what to do when somebody pays you late. And the key thing I would say here is the way to take emotion out of this is to have a very clear process and to stick to it no matter what. So if you always know, for instance, that if an invoice is overdue by 2 days, that's when you're going to chase it up. And if your process says that your first chase is done by email, then you'd have a template for what that email looks like. But you'd know, I chase it after 2 days in this way, I'll chase it after 4 days, 5 days, 7 days, and I'll do it this way. So you create that clear set of how you're going to chase it, when you're going to chase it, and exactly what you're going to say, whether that's in a call, whether that's in an email, in a letter, whatever's right for you. But if you create that process and put as much automation into it as possible, then you take away the emotion from it. The other big thing about that is sometimes it feels quite impersonal. But actually, what you're showing to your customer at that point is that you're professional, you're organised, you've got systems. And these are things that people respect. So you are absolutely within your rights to chase for money. So don't worry about being a little bit more robust about that than your heart actually tells you is the right thing to do. Just have a system and stick to it, and you're far less likely to find that your customers loiter over whether they're going to pay you. So those are my top 4 tips: is get paid up front wherever possible, have really clear terms and conditions, lay out those payment terms very clearly, issue your invoices promptly, and have a very clear process for how you're going to chase up anything that's overdue. So I hope that's really useful for you today. I think this is a tricky area of business, so I hope you're finding some value in those tips. And of course, if you know anybody else who would love to hear similar tips, please feel free to direct them to this video as well. Thank you.